Okay, so there's quite a lot of discussion in different countries as to the best way to implement this. But certainly in the UK, the idea is that you will have some sort of proof that you've received probably a double vaccination, be it through an app or some other technology, and that will allow you to do things like access nightclubs or go to certain events like the cricket or other activities.
Of course, we're not just talking about passports to allow movement between countries, but like you've said, it's proof that you've been vaccinated before you're allowed into cafes, restaurants. Do you think this is right? Is this a right thing to be doing?
Okay, so I think we have to sort of look at this in context. And the first question that needs to be asked is it fair? And here I think fairness is very much linked to the availability of vaccines. And we're very fortunate within the UK, certainly, that all people over the age of 18 have been offered a vaccination. So having the vaccine available is the first thing. The second thing is saying, well, are there any parts of society that very reasonably cannot have that vaccination for perhaps medical reasons? So there needs to be some sort of exemption, I think, for those sorts of people. So I think as long as vaccines are readily available and as long as there's exemptions in place for people who might have medical needs, I think the system can be made to be fair, because if you look at the huge disruption COVID has caused, the number of deaths that it's caused, the way it's overwhelmed health systems, it does seem to be very reasonable to ask that vaccinations are widely taken up by the population if they're going to go out and have the responsibility of being around others and perhaps passing on the disease.
Many disagree, though. There have been big protests against such requirements, particularly in France, with more than 100,000 taking to the streets to demonstrate. What do you think of what they're saying?
Yeah, no, I fully understand that, but I think we do have to take a step backwards from this, and we look at other aspects of our lives. We're coerced into wearing seatbelts, for instance, when we go in cars. If we go into hospitals or doctor's appointments, there's quite often an expectation that we don't go in there with infectious diseases. And I think there's plenty of things and plenty of reasons within society to protest and to question our governments. But given the effectiveness of vaccines and the way that it really does save lives, I don't think vaccine passports is one of these areas that we really need to be putting our efforts on, because they're a health intervention that is proven to work. And so I think it's a very important thing to encourage as many people as possible to get vaccinated.
Maybe it is the way that the rules are introduced. The government in France have had to soften some of its restrictions. What can other countries learn from the way that they've had to deal with this?
Yes, so I think the devil is quite often in the detail. I think if you take a step back, you look at the broader ethical arguments, I think there's strong ethical arguments for having some sort of vaccine passport system, but how it's implemented and whether or not it's implemented fairly, I think is a second question. And I think we'll find, looking at various countries and various ways that vaccine passports are used, probably the arguments will be more around the implementation and idiosyncrasies in the way the implementation has been done, rather than the overall concept of vaccine passports, which I think is generally a good one.
And in your view, how should vaccine passports ideally be implemented? And particularly, how might this apply in our region? How would programs need to be tweaked to suit the populations here, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an avid cricket fan. I live down the road from the Hampshire Bowl, which is the cricket stadium where I know the Australian cricket team were training when they were here for the World Cup. And I've been really disappointed to drive past, hearing the cricket going on and not being able to go in there and actually watch it. It's been so frustrating. But over the last few weeks, we've been able to go into the stadium. There's been limited numbers of people let in. That really affects the atmosphere of the stadium. The 100 competition has just started in the last week or so, and now they're saying that we'll be able to have full numbers of people going into the stadium. And certainly from my perspective, as someone who works in public health, I really would like some sort of reassurance when I go into the stadium with my 3 children that other people around me have been vaccinated and are being responsible in their actions. And we're used to going to the gates and having the tickets scanned as we come in. And I think it would be relatively easy to also just sort of check vaccine status, perhaps through an app or something, when you're going to these big events, when you're going to be in close contact with lots of people. And so for me, I would feel certainly a lot more reassured when I go to big public events if I knew vaccine passports were in place and that people were taking the responsibility for others around them due to this horrible disease that we're struggling with.
So the messaging is really important, and how governments get their message across to their populations.
No, absolutely. And a lot of people are talking about the rights and, what's the right to citizens in terms of refusing vaccinations. I think that's the wrong sort of wording. I think we need to look at responsibilities instead, that we are responsible members of societies. If we want to go out and have access to the cricket, go out and be around other people, we have responsibilities for other people within our society. So rather than looking at this as restricting people's rights and taking away our rights, instead we need to think about our responsibilities and what are our responsibilities around other people. And there's plenty of other things, I think, in society for us to demonstrate about and get concerned about. But I really don't think vaccine passports are one of those.
Hopefully we can continue to enjoy little pleasures in life. Dr. Simon Colston, thank you. And I hope you get to enjoy more cricket matches with your children. Thank you.
Thank you.